It's Joe Low Fox here. It's my channel where I talk about anime, video games, cartoons, most notably Sonic and Ninja Turtles, and today I'm going to be talking about Devil May Cry, specifically the Netflix Devil May Cry anime that just came out, last week. I just saw all the episodes this weekend. I definitely have a lot to say. I've been talking about it a little bit when I talked about it in my previous live stream, how I was like, I think I was at episode 4 and all that stuff, so I was like halfway through and I was like, yeah, I mean, it's good so far. Yeah, there's some stuff here and there that I was like, I'm a little iffy about, but of course, knowing how it's Netflix or how it's, these modern shows and stuff, you can always take a swan dive into something, and unfortunately that's exactly what it did, which I'll explain in just a second. But so I'm gonna just talk about the things I like first off, just to get that out of the way. There are some things, I know how I made that video about how I feel like a lot of people are overly critical about the new Netflix Devil May Cry and stuff. There are some things that I do feel like is a lot of people are definitely nitpicking the wrong stuff. But with Dante and all that stuff or whatever, and just some other stuff, I'll cover it. I'll cover it in just a second. But yeah. So I'm gonna tell you a little something about Devil May Cry, and all that stuff, and what do I like about the legendary Dark Knight Dante. Now, I've been a fan of Devil May Cry for about 10 years now, since I was like 16 and all that. I played it on the Xbox 360, the Devil May Cry HD collection, and I'm thinking about getting it, the HD collection again, because I just found out it's on the PS4. But Dante is one of my favorite video game characters of all time, being a demon hunter who's just straight to the point. He has the troubled past, but he doesn't really let it get to him. Similar to like some of my favorite characters, like some of my favorite anime characters like Naruto or Inuyasha and stuff. And on top of that, he has he definitely has fun doing what he likes to do and stuff, and along with the player, and I appreciate that. And of course, I mean, there's definitely some depth with his character involving accepting his demon side and his human heritage and all that other stuff. And at first, Devil May Cry 3, he was a rebel. He was resentful, had a short temper being a teenager, but he grew into somebody that was a lot more stronger and that accepted that side of himself, and how much, after realizing how much respected his dad is and stuff, learning more about him throughout that journey. Now, when I played Devil May Cry 1 at first, from the HD collection series, and the more I saw how Dante handled bosses like Phantom, Griffin, and of course Mundus later, I really admired Dante. He was a really cool character and stuff, very masculine, very he's a cool dude. He's very nonchalant, he's funny and stuff, etc. He's like that kind of guy, much like Sonic. I love Sonic. But even in Devil May Cry 2, some people thought that Dante was a little too stoic and rarely cracking jokes. For me, I kind of just saw this as him fully maturing and putting on a front so that people don't think that he's going soft or whatever, because this was set the furthest from the timeline before Devil May Cry 5 retconned that order. So so this is supposed to be a more mature, older Dante. That's why he wasn't cracking a whole lot of jokes or whatever. He was just a little stale, a little stoic, or a little bit cold, but you know what I mean. But that was supposed to be, I think that was supposed to represent the height of his maturity. That's how I see it personally. Now, what do I think about this Dante from Netflix? I honestly don't think that, I think that he's the best part of the show. Honestly, he's definitely a very likable character. I've said it before that Dante is not really a hard character to write, as long as he has that devil may care attitude and his family ties and stuff. If you can keep all that stuff intact, you're pretty much straight, which was something that the reboot kind of failed at, because Dante didn't act like Dante, and they kind of screwed up the family origins and stuff when they made Eva an angel, which people forget about, because that makes Dante and Virgil Nephilims or whatever. And what they did with Sparta and stuff, with all that weird stuff, that weird kinky stuff they did with Sparta, that was weird. It just, yeah. And I don't even think he was that powerful either, so that was also something. But anyways, yeah. And like I said, I mean, I think they delivered on that, at least for Dante. And I definitely stand by what I said before, that people are a little overcritical in this characterization for quipping too much. And look, I know how I go on like some characters, like let's say Spider-Man or whatever. Like, yeah, because his jokes don't land, and it's just so dumb. Where it's like, that's just sporadic, you know. Like from the Marvel Spider-Man, or what was that? Your Friendly Neighbor. I don't like those versions of Peter Parker. He's just too young sounding, and I'm just like, those jokes aren't funny. Yeah, here with Dante, his jokes are a little corny and stuff, but I'm like, it's not bad, or it's all right, you know what I mean? Or he's a likable guy and stuff, you know. Yeah, that's how I kind of see it. So, yeah, and he's definitely has some moments like this too, like in Devil May Cry 3, Devil May Cry 4, and Devil May 5. Devil May Cry 5 currently and stuff, you know. Like in Devil May Cry 3, he had that little guitar solo thing. He was like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, with Nevin and all that stuff, that was cool. And a few moments here and there, Jester, etc. I don't like people with a bigger mouth than mine, you know. Devil May Cry 4, you know, he had his little Shakespearean play with Agnes and all that stuff. Yeah, him messing around on that dude. I think it's that boss, that fiery boss, the Inferno guy. I think he was called Lucifer, or the weapon you get is called Lucifer or whatever. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Echidna, etc. Yeah. Yeah. And then Devil May Cry 5, you know, he was you know, doing that little hat thing with Nico and all that stuff. Yeah. So I mean, yeah. So Dante, I mean, I'm not against him being a funny guy or whatever, because that's just what he is. Yeah, he is like, he is a little bit funny like that. You know, and he is taking himself seriously in the show too. Like, he's not like just all like, yeah, he's cracking jokes here and there, and he's probably just doing it to probably ease the pressure, I guess. Cool. But he's also taking himself seriously as well, where he knows when to be serious and stuff, and when not to be serious. You know. So some people, like, at least where it's not annoying, in my opinion. So some people do say that he acts much like Deadpool and stuff, even though he's kind of actually rivals with Deadpool inside Marvel vs. Capcom 3. So there is definitely a correlation. But unlike Deadpool, Dante's like he's not as uncoordinated, he's not exaggerated, or he's not constantly breaking the fourth wall in the show. And what I mean by that is, like, you know, by uncoordinated, I know Deadpool's a really skilled assassin, but what I'm saying is, like, you know how Deadpool is. Deadpool, yeah, especially when he's on a team or something like that, you know things are going to go south with Deadpool. Or exaggerated, where the world around him is also exaggerated too, just to fit his, like, jokes or his whatever. Yeah, they don't do that in this Netflix show, at least with Dante. So I can't really say that he's like, well, he's just being like a knockoff Deadpool or something. Not really. But yeah. So he has some finer moments for like moments like saving people and stuff, like women and children in the like alley, or saving a diner full of people and stuff at like super speeds. I thought that was pretty cool. He was like, you know, like he was about to eat his strawberry sundae and stuff, and he was like, he heard like a truck or whatever and stuff like get thrown at the window, and before it had time to like go off, or like before it had time to like hit anybody, he like rushes in and grabs everybody. I thought that was also very cool too. And saving a bus full of kids when the White Rabbit, he pulled a rocket launcher and he shot it at the bus, and Dante moved quickly as hell and deflected it with his rebellion sword. I thought that was a pretty cool moment too. So yeah, it definitely has a lot of cool moments and stuff, and I think it's you know, I do like this characterization of Dante. You know, people are saying that he does look like Zarkon in his like Devil Trigger form and all that stuff, which again, this is kind of like the first time we're actually seeing Dante's Devil Trigger like in animation and stuff, because we had the Devil May Cry anime and all that stuff. They never really showed it, and I was saying, like, you know, that was a missed opportunity, but they could definitely do that here, and they did. I didn't necessarily hate it. I actually liked it and stuff. Like, a lot of people were saying that it looks like Zarkon, it looks like Parasite. They've been recycling the yeah, and don't get me wrong, they do kind of recycle stuff, like recycle character models and stuff like that. If you definitely look at Voltron and My Adventures Superman, like, you got fucking they have that character model they have for Pitch, they recycled that for Lex Luthor, or for Lance, they recycled it for Lois and stuff, and Zarkon with Parasite, and now this with Dante. I mean, yeah, it's the same kind of style, but there's obviously some differences and stuff, and obviously it's like, yeah, more of an orange reddish kind of color. It kind of reminds me of Dante's Sin Double Trigger from Devil May Cry 4 and stuff, which was actually a pretty cool form and stuff. And I was like, yeah, this is actually pretty cool too. Like I don't hate it and stuff. I'm like, no, it's all right. It is definitely all right. I'm like, yeah, I got nothing against it. But however, Devil Trigger aside, Dante isn't like aware of his half demon side until later on in this show, when he should be able to like kind of sense that in his body, because he should know that, oh, well, I'm different from other people and stuff, because my body's clearly a lot different from other people and stuff. Like I'm much stronger, I'm much faster, and I can heal much faster than your average man, or stuff that will kill your average man, I can just shake that off like it's nothing. So yeah, but Dante was thinking, well, I don't know, I could be like a mutant or some kind of super soldier. I don't know about a demon though, but he should be able to tell that within his blood, because when he first met Nero and stuff in Devil May Cry 4, Dante was able to like kind of feel like Nero's like aura and stuff, and he was able to distinguish that, or come to the conclusion that Nero is Virgil's son, because he was able to, yeah. And it's the same thing with other demons and stuff too. Like other demons can tell whenever they're around other demons and stuff, you know what I mean? Or yeah, that's how all these demons go after Dante and stuff, because they're like son of Sparta and stuff like that. They can smell his blood, detect it, whatever. So they know. But anyways, but yeah, but I mean, but look, I mean, somehow I can kind of pardon it, since Dante did kind of have amnesia one time inside the main canon when he was like going under the alias of Tony Redgrave. So as Tony Redgrave, he didn't exactly like remember too much of like, you know, of like his demon abilities or his background like that until later on. He had like, of course, you know, dreams, nightmares and stuff where things felt a little vague, but he didn't remember his past like that until later on when he got his memories back. So yeah. And I think they also fiddled around with that idea too inside the Devil May Cry reboot. But yeah, so it is kind of dumb that they, and is it kind of dumb that they nerfed him without having him have some access to his demon powers or his twin pistols, Ivry and Ebony? Yes, they definitely did nerf Dante a lot in this show, which I'll probably get into more detail about that later. They probably should have introduced Nell Goldstein in these first 8 episodes, because Nell Goldstein is kind of like, you know, she's Dante's gunsmith and stuff, and she's also kind of like a surrogate mom for Dante. And, you know, before she died in the novels and stuff, Nell actually gave Dante his iconic Ivry and Ebony guns and stuff that he uses, because, you know, you see how like in the Netflix show when Dante's using like handguns and stuff, he's always like do, like he's either running out of bullets and stuff, or he's like, you know, or he's breaking the triggers and stuff like that because of how fast he's like, you know, how he's shooting and stuff. Yeah, so that's why Ivry and Ebony are definitely custom made to suit Dante and stuff. So yeah, and on top of that, Dante has the ability to channel his demonic energy due, you know, Ivry and Ebony and stuff as well. So yeah, so that's something that we didn't really get to see at all in this show. So that was kind of a letdown. But yeah. So yeah, but Dante does have a lot of cool fight scenes though. So like I said, I definitely will give this show that much credit and stuff. Like in like the fight scenes that Dante's in, whether it be against Plasma, the White Rabbit. He was against some kind of like knight type demon character. I don't know. It might be. I'm gonna just call it a Nilo Angelo prototype. It's not actually Nilo Angelo, aka Virgil, who actually does appear in Joe, by the way. But yeah, it's like but that Nilo Angelo prototype and stuff, and just a bunch of other demons. Or he fought like 50 dudes by himself and stuff, and he took them all out without really breaking a sweat, and without like having to kill any humans and stuff like that too. So that was something. But yeah, so I think his fight scenes were definitely cool, and he definitely and I definitely enjoyed the flashback scenes and stuff, like definitely giving us a little bit more insight on like his upbringing with Eva and Virgil, because even inside like most other Devil May Cry stuff, now I could be wrong because I haven't read all the Devil May Cry mangas and stuff. I read the Devil May Cry 3 manga, but the Devil May Cry 5 mangas and stuff like that got put out, I never really read it like that, or I haven't read it at all. That's the thing. So maybe someday though. But anyways, and I remember seeing like a family photo of like Dante, Virgil, Eva and Sparta and stuff together inside Devil May Cry 5. But what I'm saying is we never really got much insight on like Dante's childhood like that. Besides in mentioning or in passing and stuff like that. So I'm just saying like yeah. So I actually did like to see him and Virgil and stuff and Eva like together and stuff, as a family. And Dante and Virgil like fighting and stuff a little bit, and Eva had to break them up. Or Eva is telling Dante about his dad, about Sparta and stuff, and how he was like a brave, legendary Dark Knight and everything, etc. So yeah, those were some cool ass scenes, and I would love to actually see more of it compared to what we actually did get. But I'll get into that in a second too. But yeah, and like I said, if this is really the entire show, where it was all about like this, and they like take some scenes where like just take out that scene where he got captured. I'll explain that more later. In the inn and all that stuff, I definitely would have been content with this. Okay, but that ending, this ending assassinated Lady's character, and it just disrespected Dante, and I just don't appreciate that. Like I don't appreciate that at all. Alright, let me talk about the writer's favorite character in this show. Lady the girl boss. Now, Lady was introduced in Devil May Cry 3 as one of Dante's earliest partners and likely the best human devil hunter. So I have no complaints about her taking on boss type demons or giving Dante some difficulty when she has in the past. She's taken on Dante and Trish both before and one-on-ones due to like her acrobatics and her stubbornness and her technology. But of course, if Dante and Trish really wanted to, like, and if it was like a fight to the finish or them actually using like their their strength and all that stuff, like they would definitely be able to beat the Lady then. But I will say that Lady usually inside Devil May Cry, she can at least challenge Dante and Trish when it comes to devil hunting, but that's about it. So it definitely does make sense for her to like definitely outscale over your common mercenary or be able to like survive the longest compared to like her team and all that stuff, because yeah, like I said, Lady's like the only human playable character inside Devil May Cry. Yeah, I mean Dante and stuff, Nero, Virgil, they may be like half demons, quarter demons and stuff, but Lady is the only actual human in the game and stuff that doesn't have any specific powers and all that stuff. So that's what I'm trying to get at. So I'm not necessarily against her like depicting that she's a little bit more, compared to like other, characters and stuff, And she is shown running away and relying on cheap tactics and stuff to kind of beat her opponents, whereas Dante could actually just straight up like maul down or like definitely like fight most of his opponents like one-on-one. So I don't really agree with that criticism though too much, but yeah. And her tomboyish, no tolerance, and bad attitude is just something that's always been kind of officially a part of her character, even inside the original Devil May Cry anime. I know a lot of people definitely see like Devil May Cry 3 and stuff, and like Lady was like loosening up with Dante and stuff, and she was, but Devil May Cry 1 is like set 10 years after Devil May Cry 3. So yeah, that I would say like if you go to that anime and stuff, like yeah, that's kind of like how Lady still kind of acts even with Dante and stuff. I'm just saying. So I'm not saying like this show, yeah, but trust me, we've seen this trope done so many times where it's kind of a turn off, but what I'm saying is that it isn't like that far-fetched and stuff, except for like the cucking Dante stuff. Again, I'll definitely get into that in a second too. But the excessive swearing and the screen time that she's getting is kind of honestly retarded. Then there's like even a flashback episode with like no Dante, by the way, about her and the White Rabbit origin, which if you know Lady's story, it shouldn't really be much. So basically Lady's dad, whose full name is John Arkham in this version, not simply just Arkham. I guess it makes sense, I don't know. At first I was like, wait, Arkham's Lady's last name where it's a family name? Because, we call Arkham that, yeah, like Arkham Jester, that, yeah, that's Lady's dad, but okay. But basically he wants to become a demon because he felt helpless to save his family one time, so he just grew obsessed over it. But in canon, he wanted to become a demon because he got obsessed over Sparta, Dante's dad and stuff, and his family legacy and stuff. Yeah, Arkham got obsessed with over that kind of thing, so he wanted to become the new Sparta. He wanted to be the new Dark Knight and stuff. And even before Lady was born, I always think that he always planned for that to always go down and stuff, that he still had that obsession even before she was born. That's kind of why he married Kalina and Lady's mom and stuff. and had Lady and stuff because Kalina and Lady, they're both descendants of a priestess that Sparta has sacrificed. So I don't think it's kind of not a coincidence that all of a sudden Arkham, who needs Lady's blood for the tower and stuff, to kind of because remember from Devil May Cry 3, basically Arkham had tricked Lady, Virgil, and Dante into getting to the tower and stuff because he needed both Dante and Virgil's blood, and he needed their amulets, and he also needed Lady's blood too, because Lady's a descendant of the priestess and stuff that Sparta has sacrificed to kind of contain, to kind of seal away his powers and stuff inside to seal away his powers and all that stuff, and the portal between hell and earth and all that stuff, basically. So I do think that he always did kind of plan for that. But I do think that, at one point in time, he actually was a very genuine man, and he probably did care about his family at one point because, even Lady was saying, my dad was, a really good person at one point, and then just, I'm pretty sure he just snapped one day and just went back to his ways, and just was like, all right, well, let's succeed with this plan of trying to be the next Sparta. So that's where I think that's how that happened. And they kind of covered that a little bit vaguely, if you know, but watching the Netflix thing, you'll probably be like, that's a little weird, but anyways, yeah. And look, I definitely tolerated this up to episode 8, but she really had the nerve to just sit up in here and she drugged Dante, captured him for experimentation by the end of the series. Okay, by the end of this the 8-episode season. She basically drugged Dante after they defeated the White Rabbit and stuff, and basically captured him because she just felt that he was just too powerful to be left alone. And I'm like, what? Even in Devil May Cry 3, that's not something Lady would do when her and Dante had worked together and stuff. She wasn't like, well, you're just too powerful to be left alone, so now I'm going to have to drug and capture you, put you on ice, and have scientists I don't know, figure out what makes you tick. Especially after your whole military organization just I don't know, betrayed your trust and all that stuff, but you're still gonna side with them, and you're gonna do this to Dante after he just saved the world. You tried to go after his amulet that his mom had gave him and all that stuff. That is just so retarded. So I don't know. I guess they did this to kind of stretch out the to try and stretch out the series more, I guess, because they wanted to do this drama type of thing, I guess. I don't know. But I'm just like, this shit was so fucking stupid. But yeah, which it just, but anyways, honestly, the whole drug thing shouldn't even work anyways, since, Dante's biology as a half human, half demon is much different anyways. So drugs shouldn't even be able to work on him for starters. And then earlier in the, in this show, Dante was literally able to, detect and able to react to an oil tanker being thrown through a window and save everybody inside the diner and stuff before it had time to go off and stuff. So he should have what he should have done was slice off her arm, not the syringe, slice off her arm like Virgil did Nero, and just walk off into the sunset. That's how that would have been so much more better, and we all would have liked it. And look, I don't hate Lady as a character and stuff, but I'm just saying this version, after she tried to do that bullcrap, yeah, Dante had every right. He had every right to do that. Not to mention her development was very rushed. I thought it was kind of decent. I thought it was a decent scene when the whole demon family kind of saved her and stuff. But she immediately took a 180 and turned to sympathizing with demons and stuff. So I'm not necessarily against. Now here's the thing, and I'll explain more of this in a second. There are some demons inside Devil May Cry that actually are morally good, or they're not terrible people. But that's only an outlier or a minority, I can understand one or two or a few demons here and there defecting, which I'll bring up in just a second. But yeah, and they'll probably find them and love them like that, and get with them. I've already obviously the whole Sparta thing and Eva and them having Dante and Virgil and stuff, and even with Dante and Virgil, they've had human love interests too and stuff, or at least Virgil. We know Virgil. He has a he has a son, Nero, and stuff. So yeah, but we don't know the mom though. So yeah, I think they said that the mom was a prostitute or something that Virgil probably had a thing with one time. But yeah, But yeah, but then they kind of just made the narrative all about just sympathizing with demons and stuff, and just going full blown anti-Christian and stuff. And there was a guy, the vice president, who was voiced by like Kevin Conroy, which I'm actually surprised they actually still got voice clips of Kevin Conroy, which is crazy, or voice clips, even after his death. But yeah, they've been, I guess, working on the show for a while. But yeah, but that whole anti-Christian message narrative thing that they were doing, that shit was so that was stupid in general. I was like, oh my god, why'd you turn it into a fucking anti-Christian thing? But I'm gonna get into that in a second. I'm gonna turn to that in a second. But yeah, but basically, when sympathetic demons in Devil May Cry is, like I said, it's an outlier stuff compared to the vast majority of the race. There are some full demons like Sparta, Lucia, Bradley. If you don't remember who Bradley is, Bradley's a character from the Devil May Cry anime who fell in love with the mayor's daughter and stuff, and Dante and the mayor hired Dante to kill Bradley because he was like, I think he's a demon and I think he's out to get my daughter. And Dante investigated and was like, he's a good person. And then he proved later, like Bradley even proved later to the mayor that yeah, he's a good person, he genuinely does care about his daughter. So there are good demons inside Devil May Cry, like even full demons and stuff, but not like an entire civilization of people and stuff like that. And then they're also on some fucking She-Ra Cal Arts bullcrap where they did all that stupid ass shit from the fucking animation, that flashback episode with the white rabbit. I was like, give me a break. Just give me a break. But yeah, anyways, but like I said, they don't represent the entire race though. And DMC shouldn't really be like covering religion either and stuff. Yeah, it definitely does take some inspiration from Christianity for from some of the character designs or for some of the characters, I guess. But it shouldn't be deconstructing Christianity, or shouldn't be like, oh, on this whole anti-Christian narrative or anti-American narrative. No, that's never been Devil May Cry. Like the only time they ever covered religion was inside Devil May Cry 4, where like the villain Sanctus and stuff, he was using like religion and stuff, and he kind of used this made-up religion. It wasn't even Christianity. It was like a religion that he made up about serving Sparta and stuff to kind of indoctrinate people and to start a cult. And Dante, Nero, Lady, and Trish, they all had fought him and stuff over that. That's how that turned out. But the White Rabbit was a decent villain until they revealed his human origins and tried to correlate his story with Lady as to why he's so damaged. Honestly, if they left him be an inspiring demon lord trying to gain power like Sid or Arkham, he would have been perfect, honestly. Like, he just would have been perfect. Nothing more, nothing less. That would have been better. I don't care how generic it sounds, it's definitely better than what we got. Because he did some villainous things, and he was doing stuff to stuff like, a human really shouldn't be able to do, like deflecting bullets and stuff like that, moving at super speeds, taking on armed men and stuff like that. Like, he was doing all of that, but yet you're telling me that he's a human and not a demon. Like all that stuff he did in the first episode, X, Y, and Z, that shit makes no logical sense. But his backstory is like, it's just his backstory honestly feels like this one time back when I was in like 9th grade, and like basically I wanted to like take this extra credit assignment that would like kind of boost my score up a little bit. Instead, I failed the extra credit and it brought my score down lower. That's exactly how this shit feels with the White Rabbit, where I'm like, wow, this is actually a pretty cool villain right here. And then when I like get to the backstory and they're like, oh well, basically he's a human like that grew up in like foster care, and he was abused, bullied and stuff, and basically he became jaded towards humanity. He found a portal to the demon world or demon realm and stuff. He goes into the demon realm to hell, gets rescued by some demons and stuff, by a civilization. He migrates into their whatever, and then basically he tries to bring them over to Earth and stuff so that they can escape Mundus and all that stuff. And then they get targeted by the Dark Com thing and Lady, and bam, he becomes a villain after that, after he gets fucked up. So I'm not really feeling that origin, honestly. I'm just like, yeah. But again, he did some terrible things, and I actually like that from a villain and stuff, I don't like the sympathetic route, which they have some kind of fetish for, apparently, when it comes to these type of shows. Also, I felt like Enzo was a pretty decent character and stuff. He was kind of, yeah, he was definitely in character in my opinion. I don't agree with the decision to kill him off like they did. Um, Injured, sure, he could have been injured trying to help out Dante and stuff. I would have liked that better. Would have probably used it to like heal Enzo and stuff. I know Dante is he's got like a Wolverine, Deadpool type of healing factor, but I'm saying like, you know, if he can, because I think even in Devil May Cry 2, you can like you have this ability like this amulet or something like that that allows you to heal. So I'm just saying like, yeah, maybe if like Dante's Double Trigger had an ability to heal, like yeah, I think that would have been better in my opinion. And he could have been like, oh, just motivation to take down the White Rabbit versus just actually killing him off and stuff, you know. That's just how I felt because Enzo actually is a character that lived through Dante's earlier days as a devil hunter and stuff. Um, yeah, he lived through those earlier days. He's a good friend of Dante's, or you know, yeah, they're friends. Yeah, he's a little, you know, grimy sometimes. He gives Dante terrible jobs, and honestly, Dante got tired and fed up with working with Enzo, which is why we don't really see them working together anymore in current day. Um, Currently, Enzo, you know, if you guys play Bayonetta, you know, Enzo's actually in that game. He's like he's technically kind of like Bayonetta's client, and he helps her get jobs and stuff. Whereas Dante had moved on and has JD Morrison give him like you know certain jobs and stuff for like you know his devil hunting business and all that stuff. So it all worked out. But I mean, but yeah, but even then, like yeah, Dante and Enzo, they're still good friends. Enzo, he has a wife and 2 children and stuff off screen, according inside like Bayonetta and stuff. So it's just like, so why'd you guys kill him off here? But it's whatever, I guess. And plus, his design is a little bit different. It kind of reminds me of Wario, because Enzo, well, obviously, I think his hair, they dyed his hair blonde in the show or something like that. He is supposed to be a short, fat Italian man, but he has like a little ponytail. He's kind of supposed to look a little bit like an Italian version of like Penguin or something, you know? That's kind of how Enzo is supposed to look. But nah. Or even in the Devil May Cry manga and stuff, Enzo, well, yeah, I mean, he looked a little different there too, but it's whatever. It's whatever. But I was just like, I just didn't agree with that decision to kill him off, though.
Captain America, win!
Good work, soldier!
Venom,
We want
win!
to eat your brain!
Let's see what little gifts we have for our guest. A traitor. Dead. 2 sorcerers. Dead. A queen. Dead. A daughter. Dead. A bodyguard. Dead. A thief. Dead. A champion. Dead. You will bow to me. Yeah.